What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the BLU Bold N2 and the Samsung Galaxy A23. Now before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability. And also keep in mind, this is not the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. As of the recording of this video, I currently don't have that phone yet. This is the 4G version of the Samsung Galaxy A23, so definitely keep that in mind. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the BLU Bold N2, we're getting a 6.6-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 390, an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9, and a 90.9% screen-to-body ratio. So as you can see here, this phone has really thin bezels, giving it a nice modern look. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A23, we're getting a 6.6-inch 90Hz PLS TFT display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 400, an aspect ratio of 20 by 9, and an 83% screen-to-body ratio. So both of these phones have really good displays, but the main difference here is that with the BLU Bold N2 we are getting an AMOLED display versus a PLS TFT, and this is going to give the BLU Bold N2 a better quality image in general. The colors are going to look a little bit better, the brightness is going to be better, and the viewing angles are also going to be better as well. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, or really just in any bright area overall, the BLU Bold N2 is going to be a lot easier to see than the Samsung Galaxy A23. On the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A23 does have a 90Hz refresh rate, whereas the BLU Bold N2 only has a 60Hz display, and this is going to make the movement on the screen a little bit faster and smoother with the Samsung Galaxy A23. So if you're doing something like watching a video or playing a game with a lot of motion on the screen, or just using the phone in general, things are going to feel a little bit more fluid, and the phone is going to feel more premium to use. But that being said, the refresh rate is a little bit more of a subtle difference, and I feel like having an AMOLED display definitely outweighs this. Now for storage, the BLU Bold N2 is getting 256GB of internal storage with no microSD card expansion, and the Samsung Galaxy A23 is getting 128GB, and this phone does have microSD card expansion. So the BLU Bold N2 with double the internal storage does have a bit of an advantage here, but since the Samsung Galaxy A23 doesn't really have a small amount of storage, and it does have microSD card expansion, it kind of does balance out. And in general, I feel like 128GB is going to be enough storage for the average user. Sure, if you're a power user, if you have a lot of apps and stuff like that, then having 256GB of internal storage would be nice. But again, for most people, if you have 128GB, you're probably not going to fill that up. And if you have a lot of photos and videos, for example, since this phone does have microSD card expansion, you can always expand the storage even more. So in general, again, while the BLU Bold N2 does technically have an advantage here, it's not really a huge deal unless you're really a power user and you need more internal storage for stuff like apps. Now for security features, both phones do have fingerprint scanners. With the BLU Bold N2, it's right here on the display, so definitely nice and premium looking. And with the Samsung Galaxy A23, it's right here on the power key, which is a real convenient spot for a fingerprint scanner. And in addition to the fingerprint scanners, both phones have face unlock as well. But starting with the BLU Bold N2, let's give these fingerprint scanners a try and see how well they work. There we go, one more time. And there we go. Moving on to the Samsung Galaxy A23. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners worked real well, no issues at all. And again, both phones also have face unlock, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the BLU Bold N2, we got a 16 megapixel front facing camera. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, the BLU Bold N2 has a max quality of 2K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. With the Samsung Galaxy A23, we got an 8 megapixel front facing camera. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup as well, with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, the Samsung Galaxy A23 has a max recording quality of 1080p in both the rear and front cameras. So as far as camera features go, these phones are pretty much the same here. Both of them have all the features, including an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, so that's great. The only real difference is the BLU Bold N2 can record 2K videos, and the Samsung Galaxy A23 can only record in 1080p. Now in my opinion, this isn't really that big of a difference, because honestly, if you really want to record in a higher resolution than 1080p, you might as well just get a device that can record in 4K. But that being said, if you are recording a lot of videos and you do actually value the 2K feature, then of course the BLU Bold N2 will have an advantage there. But as far as overall photo quality goes, I honestly like the photos taken with the Samsung Galaxy A23 a little bit better. The colors and details just came out a little bit nicer, whereas with the BLU Bold N2 it's still good, but some of the colors and details just don't look very realistic. But that being said, it is pretty close, and if you're taking a lot of photos for social media media or something like that, and you want a camera that's good for that, but not necessarily anything near flagship level, then you're really not going to go wrong with either of these phones. Now, as far as RAM and processor go, with the BLU Bold N2, we're getting 8GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 810 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A23, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 680 4G processor. So as the name of the processor suggests, the Samsung Galaxy A23 is actually a 4G phone, so of course there's no 5G connectivity here, whereas with the BLU Bold N2, this is a 5G phone, so if 5G connectivity is important to you, then of course the BLU Bold N2 will be a better choice. But that being said, I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and as you can see here, despite the difference in network connectivity, they're really not very far apart. With the BLU Bold N2, we're getting a single core score of 586 and a multi-core score of 1685, and with the Samsung Galaxy A23, we're getting a single core score of 351 and a multi-core score of 1645. So again, despite the BLU Bold N2 being a 5G phone and the Samsung Galaxy A23 only being a 4G phone, performance-wise, you're not really going to see a huge difference here. So honestly, at the end of the day, between the two, it's really going to come down to whether or not you actually care about 5G connectivity, because if you don't, it's really going to go either way. These phones are basically going to have the same capabilities. Neither of them are going to be anywhere near flagship level, but for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, stuff like that, they're going to be perfectly fine. And in my experience, I haven't had any performance issues, so unless you're doing higher performance activities like playing Fortnite or Call of Duty, where you really need a lot more processing power, then you will at least get a good experience with either of these phones. But again, if you want 5G connectivity, the BLU Bold N2 between the two is the only 5G phone here, because this Samsung Galaxy A23 is not the A23 5G. That is a completely different phone, and this phone in my hand is 4G only. Now for the battery, the BLU Bold N2 has a 4200 mAh battery that supports 30W fast charging, and the Samsung Galaxy A23 has a 5000 mAh battery that supports 25W fast charging. So in general, the Samsung Galaxy A23 does have a significantly better battery here, and the 5W difference in fast charging is really not going to change anything. If you have a good fast charger, the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is going to charge up just as fast, and with a 5000 mAh battery, the A23 is going to have much better battery life and longevity. So if having a good battery is important to you, then the Samsung Galaxy A23 is going to be the best choice here. But that being said, the BLU Bold N2 doesn't really have a bad battery per se, and if you're in a situation where maybe you usually have your phone plugged in all day anyway, this phone is really not going to be bad either. Another thing to keep in mind is the Samsung Galaxy A23 does have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using tap and pay, you can do that with this phone, but unfortunately the BLU Bold N2 does not have NFC. So again, if you do like to use tap and pay, the Samsung Galaxy A23 will have an advantage. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? Overall, this is one of those situations where neither phone is really better per se, but they do have different advantages. On one hand, if you want a better quality image, more internal storage, and 5G connectivity, then the BLU Bold N2 will be a better choice here. But with the Samsung Galaxy A23, the display still looks pretty good. It also has a decent amount of storage with microSD card expansion. I personally like the A23's camera a lot better, so if you're taking a lot of photos, definitely keep this in mind. And in addition to this, the A23 has a much better battery. It has NFC, so you can use tap and pay. And while it doesn't have 5G connectivity, the Samsung Galaxy A23 has one of the best 4G processors I've seen in 2022. And performance-wise, you're really not going to see a significant difference there between these two phones. So again, neither phone is really significantly better than the other, but despite their differences, both of them do provide quite a bit of value for the money. And if you're looking for a solid mid-range phone, then I would say both of them are worth considering. But this concludes my comparison between the BLU Bold N2 and the Samsung Galaxy A23. Again, if you want to learn more about either of these phones individually, I will be linking to several other videos about them in the description, as well as some information about pricing and availability, because this is always changing. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.